Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So the last presentation of the day would be working on open source project, the learnings from development. So few of us from Ericsson, we have been working on a couple of open source projects, me mostly on the OpenDaylight for the past 3 years. So over the period of 3 years, we have learned quite a bit on what to do, what not to do, and most importantly, how to do it. So this presentation would mainly focus on how do you start contributing to an open source project? What are the normal questions you have in mind? What are the normal places you go to, or whom all do you approach to get solutions for those? So there are multiple open source projects. So if you look at this slide, there is a huge bunch of open source projects currently in the technological market, and most of them are open source networking projects. So the theories or the practices that we would say for one do hold good for the others as well. So in case you are willing to contribute to some open sources other than ODL, feel free, the policies would hold true. Now,
okay, and if you go back to the slide, one interesting thing that you will notice, it does not include OpenDaylight, it does not include OpenFlow, Honors, OVS, the OpenDaylight ecosystem, open source, just to highlight the fact that this applies, what we are going to talk about, applies to any open source project you work on. Okay, so the first question is, when you decide, okay, I want to contribute, first question is what to contribute. No matter the nature of open source project, every open source project will always want, first of all, code. In open source, code is everything. Then documentation, then Q&A. Q&A, or rather you say testing. What those tests are varies from project to project, but code, testing, documentation, and what else was there? Yeah.
The question and answers, the blogs.
Blogs. QA is, Shivash, QA is not question and answers, that's quality assurance.
Yeah.
He always confuses the two. Yeah. Okay, so blogs are, okay, you may have some documentation which is a bit too design focused, but how does someone new to your project use it? If I'm sure quite a few of you have at some point tried, oh, let me integrate OpenStack and OpenDaylight. Google OpenStack, OpenDaylight. One of the most popular search items or the most useful resource you would have ended up would be either a blog by Kyle Mistry or a blog by Flavio. At least up to 6 months, till last 6 months ago, those were the best resources you had. Those were blogs. So those are always welcome. Then comes IRC. Oh, I'm trying to do something, it is not working. Go to IRC channel, talk to the person, hey, I'm facing this issue. Someone would always be there to help you, though not so true in OpenDaylight. But in most open source communities, yes, someone will always be there to help you and respond to you within a few minutes. And yeah, we will always want more infrastructure. So maybe Anil might be able to talk much more about that. But okay, let's not go into that, right? It's a long story of its own. Okay, so most first point of entry for most people to an open source project is, oh, I'm trying to do something. Am I doing it correctly? You send out a mail, someone responds, oh, looks like this is a bug. Okay, good. So you found a bug, congratulations. Before you contribute code, this is the first thing you can contribute to the project. So what you can do, first thing that you should always do is if you find a bug, find out where to file that bug. Every open source project will have some means for bug tracking. I'm sure those of you who have worked in software, in your organizations, you would have some bug tracking mechanism. Same holds for every open source project. File a bug. Give a good one-liner, because that initial one-liner is what everyone will see. It should catch attention and give a good summary. Give good description, easy to read, easy to understand. Is the bug reproducible? Easy to understand, steps to reproduce. Have you captured any log information? Capture it. Here also, raise bug, look up. Has anyone else ran into the same issue? If not, has anyone else ran into issues in the same product or not? What sort of information they attached? Look at some other bugs. What sort of information you can capture? For example, for OpenFlow plugin, one of the first things we ask is, okay, give me what are the flows you have in the switch. Or give me the Karaf logs from OpenDaylight. Capture information as much as you have captured. Okay? So, what else, Shiva?
Yeah, and never forget to include steps on how to reproduce an issue. Because most of the times, we are so very much accustomed to testing our own stuff, that we know exactly what is the testing that we are doing, and how would we reproduce an issue. But once we are putting up that information in a bug, most of the times the people looking at it would not have any idea on how do you want to reproduce the issue. So put up all the configuration data that would you want associated with the bug, the topology of the network that you are testing out with, and any other relevant information, like I'm running it on a hardware server, this is the configuration, I'm running it on VM, this is the configuration, this is the networking that is done. You have any topology script that you can attach to, please feel free to attach all those information, because if I'm a developer and I'm looking at a bug, I would like to have the maximum information that I would want from it at the first instance of time. So make sure that the bug V file has every bit of information that can help a newbie or well-versed developer to attack it at that point of time. So, and most of the times we find a bug, we attach all the information, we open a bug in Bugzilla or the bug tracking tool, and more often than not, we find that nobody is responding to the bug, and it's very frustrating. So we say, yeah, I have filed a blocker, I have filed a critical bug, but no one in the community seems to be bothered by it. Yeah, we know about that. So different projects have different timelines, the different schedules in which they pick up bugs, they triage bugs. So it varies from project to project, but overall what we suggest is, yeah, you wait for some amount of time. You probably give them a week and see what is the progress on the bug. In Bugzilla, for instance, on the ODL side, you have emails which you can attach to the bug so that the people get notified when the bug gets edited or the bug gets modified. So we could attach the committers there, attach yourself, so that the committers get to know, okay, there has been a bug raised. So after you have waited for some amount of time and you see that there hasn't been any progress whatsoever on the bug, drop a mail on the mailing alert saying this is my issue, this is the configuration that I tested with, and boss, it's been there for like 7 days, 10 days, and I would expect it to get fixed. Do let me know. And always end your emails on a very, very positive note, showing the willingness to help out the people who are trying to fix it, saying, yes, let me know as to how I can help you out in case you are feeling that you need some more information. So that willingness does take us a long way in helping people to solve the issues. And request for, if even after that you don't find anything, ping the project tech lead, request a slot in the project meetings, and bring out the problem saying this is the issue that I'm testing with. It's really hurting me, and you would appreciate much if the issue gets fixed. And if even after that nothing happens, take to the IRC, poke the developers, and try to see how best we can get it fixed.
Okay, so you filed a bug, either you found it and you don't know how to fix it, or you've dug deeper while you were waiting for someone to respond and, oh, I found out how to fix it. I have a fix for this issue. No one else has responded. Maybe I should fix it. Very good. That's the sort of spirit we are looking for. You know, open source. You don't have to wait for someone to fix it. If you can, go ahead, do it. But now you have a fix for an issue. How do you get it in? First, of course, you have to make sure before the fix goes in, the bug is being tracked. There's an equivalent bug for it. Post the patch for the review. Open source project, almost all open source project, at least none that I can think of, no one stops you from committing a patch. Everyone can upload a patch, fixing anything, any code. Only getting would be review of the patch. If it's good, it would go in. If not, people will give feedback. No one will reject it just like that. Irrespective of which company you work from, or are you an individual, how much experience you have, none of that matters. Only thing that matters is the quality of the code that comes in.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry?
Okay.
That's more part of the setup. We'll come to it later. We'll come to it. We're just talking about generic what you should be doing. That's part of setting up your account to patch and all that. We're not going to those details right now. We'll get to it.
We have a slide on that.
We have slides on that. Yeah, so most open source projects have option for both for individual committers as well as corporate. So if in doubt, always check with someone, your manager or your legal team. if your company is contributing to it. See, thing is, if you're working for a company and you found out an issue and ran into it, there's a very good chance you were doing it for some internal project and you want to use it in some capacity, right? In that case, get in touch with your company. They would have some corporate license. If they don't, they can apply for one, or they will say, okay, go ahead, go with an individual one. If you're doing it on your time, on your own, through your own laptop and stuff, go ahead, you can always sign up using your personal email and use the individual one.
Yeah, most often than not, upstreaming the fix always helps because it's like living in a society, so we shouldn't always end up being very critical about some issues that we face rather than getting it there and fixing it ourselves. Yeah, that is one part I always believe in. Yeah, we can always keep on complaining that this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, but why not pitch in and fix it? So yeah, apart from that, apart from linking the bug, now we have fixed the issue. So I have a patch that fixes the issue. So one of the things that I would always say is fix the patch to the bug so that a reviewer taking a look into it knows exactly what is the issue that the patch is solving. And more often than not, the commit messages in the patches are pretty terse. So in case I'm taking a look at the patch just for a reviewer, I don't know what is actually you are solving. You say I'm adding a nice extension for suppose an MPLS label. I don't know why you're doing it. Yeah, it's good. The code looks good, but why are you doing it? So always have a meaningful commit message. So there is a link for a detail on how meaningful a commit message can be. The rule which I follow is what is a patch? What is the patch for? So you have just a one-liner saying what is the patch for, why is it there, and how is it solving the problem. So the first time I take a look into it, without also going into the bug, I know, okay, this is the thing that your patch, this is the problem that your patch is trying to solve. Apart from that, ensure that it passes all the relevant continuous integration or the test environment or the scripts that the regression is running for that particular project. Because more often than not, whenever you change something, it's quite possible that it's breaking something else. So I remember committing a patch on the statistics a couple of weeks back, and Anil had pointed out that it could break something, and as usual, I did not heed his words. So when I ran the integration, it was actually breaking stuff. So it's always advisable to run your integration suits, whatever you have. Lewis on the Opensource plugin does an extremely good job. So you have keywords for most of the test cases, and so you just use the keywords, run the test cases, ensure that your patch doesn't break anything additional. If something is broken, good. If something is broken and you have fixed it, the results will show that. And more often than not, yes. So I have ensured that my patch doesn't break anything. So now I have poked the reviewers have given comments, but in a corporate setup, mostly it happens that, okay, I have fixed an issue, I have upstreamed it, I've ensured that I've followed all the hygiene in upstreaming the code, but then somebody comes in and says, yeah, so again, I'll take the example of Anil here. So I have a Hungarian notation of mentioning the variable names, and he doesn't quite like it. So every time I mention a variable name, he would come and say, please change the variable name. So, and the patch has been lying there for around 2 months because, yeah, the thing is fixed for me and I have moved on, but the patch still remains. So as a policy of hygiene, always attend to the reviewer's commit as fast as possible. So in that way, you also show your willingness to contribute to the project. You also show your willingness in taking the reviewer's comment seriously, and that is actually a very good thing when it comes to an open source, because your patch actually speaks words about you. And consider, so in terms like while you are coding for a flag or you are coding for some scenario which can actually lead to issues in high performance, always consider performance, scale, and performance and scale implementations of the same, because one small, so mostly we test out with a lower number of things, but the moment we have around 1 million flows or hundreds of switches, things can break. And wherever possible, if you are adding something like we recently added a flag for LLDP monitoring, so we can test it out in our own development environment. But as always advisable, please add JUnits for the same, so that we can get more and more code getting regressed and unit tests covered. That is always a very, very good practice. and mostly add all the active committers on the project. You can go up in the wiki and add people who are not active and then crib about saying that the committers are not responding. So just look into who are the active committers, add them as reviewers, ensure that you act on their comments, and your patch has good amount of tests for it.
Okay, Shuva, that's all fine and good. Can you just go back? No, you told me to do all these things. See, I'm just new. I'm a new guy. How would I know how to do all this? Who I should add? How do I get all that information? And how does this help me? That would be the obvious question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does this help me? So being committers and to add some value more to this session, I would like to give you a peek behind the curtains. How does reviews look in the input queue of a committer? So whenever a patch is raised, we have a queue that shows, okay, what are the incoming reviews? It will show whether anyone else has reviewed or not, whether it has passed verification testing or not, how many lines of code it is, and one brief one-liner that you will give in the commit message. Now, this is where all these points come together. If I have 10 reviews in my queue, I have only 20 minutes to review before I go take a shower and start heading for office. Which one am I more likely to review? The one which has verification +1 or a -1?
+1.
+1, of course. If I have a review patch that's coming in, say 1,000 lines of code versus one with 5 lines of code, which one will I review first?
The smaller one,
Yeah.
obviously.
And if someone has already given a -1, I will not even take a look at it.
Yeah.
And I have 10, it may be scrolling multiple pages. Anything which is in top, of course, human nature, right? We start reading web pages top to bottom. Anything which is in top will show up first.
Yes.
So someone gave a review comment. You have not applied the patch set, but you have some questions. But if you never post them on the patch set, it will stay at the bottom. Anytime you post a new patch set or a comment or your verification will passes, any change to your patch will bump it up the queue. So if someone asks a question, you have not replied it, it would over time go to the bottom. You reply, it comes on top, I'll see, okay, what's happened? New comments.
New comments.
Right? So these are things, at first it may not seem very important, but when you realize that, okay, how all this gets used by the reviewers, it becomes very crucial. Okay, so how do I find out who are the committers of my project?
Okay, so for any project, you have a wiki link, and the wiki link would give the set of active committers for a particular project in a given release, and as well as a set of advisory or committers who have been quiet for a period of time. So mostly add the active committers, or if possible, if you have managed to get a slot in the meetings during one of the weekly meetings of the project, ask them who are all willing to take a look into the patch. More often than not, people have been kind enough to opt themselves for reviewing patches.
You know, I have a better trick. You know, a better way to do that is right from your Gerrit. Whenever you push a patch, it will show which repository it has gone to, right? Click on the repository, see what other patches have been merged and who was the person who merged it. That person is the committer, and that person is the one you want on your good trick, right? Yeah, that's what I used to do. Okay.
Yeah.
So Sona tracks lots of statistics about your project, like, okay, how many check style violations are there, what's the unit test coverage, and all those numbers, which is a good indicator of the health of your project. Maybe early on you may not be too interested in it, but good to know what all it captures and how is your patch impacting all these things. For example, if you are introducing a big code, not adding any testing for it, you might be reducing the code coverage from 50% down to 40%, or maybe more depending on the size of the files. Okay? Then when you are adding new functions, write Java docs. It's a rather simple thing to do. Many tools will generate some auto Java docs for you. Use it. How to write? All that is captured in documentation. Then coding patterns.
Yeah, so more often than not, we always scribe about logging and how do we handle exceptions. So few of the committers have got together, Anil and folks, and they have come up with what actually would be a good logging practice. So we have the link there, what actually is a debug, what actually is the info, when do we throw an error, and what are their implications on performance. So always have these considerations in mind when you are coding for a patch, because more often than not, things can fail in ways in which you do not imagine. So have logging enabled either in a debug mode or in info mode so that we know what is going wrong after adding the patch. And exception handling is one interesting thing, because in Java, anything and everything can throw an exception. So be very careful on what are the places where you can throw where an exception is getting thrown and who is actually handling it. Be very careful of the fact that if an exception is thrown in code, we do not rely upon the infrastructure model to catch it and act on it. If it's our code, we should be very, very careful of handling our own exceptions.
Yeah. Okay, now that's the interesting thing, right? You look at all this, you think, oh man, there's too much stuff to learn and keep track of, and I'm just new, I don't know all this. So, okay, all these are, reason these are called guidelines, okay? You know, guidelines are just meant to be followed. They're not enforced that way, although we are looking to get to that point. So the thing is, when someone new comes in, we know whether you are a frequent contributor or a new one. And of course, if you are a new one, you make these kind of mistakes, people would tell you. No one will scold you, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay? So don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you are doing something wrong, if you are not sure, leave a comment over there. What should I do over here? Call out attention to the committers so that they can explicitly give comments. If you are not sure, do what you think is best. Someone will give a comment. You will learn something. Okay, so don't say, oh, I don't know how to do exception handling. Maybe I should not push a patch. No, you do. Okay, leave a question. How do I handle this exception? What's a good practice? Or as I always say, you know, the best way to get the right answer is give a wrong answer.
Give a wrong answer. Yep.
Okay, so what's next?
Yeah, so so you have a patch, you have everything, and more often than not we come across, okay, so how do I push a patch upstream? So sign up with the ODL identity server. You have the link there, create an account for yourself, add your SSH keys, have an HTTPS password, and you are good to go. You get it set up, so we have a wiki that explains how exactly would you go about pushing up a patch and hacking and checking out code. So you check out the code, git clone, check out the project, select the branch on which we are doing, and more often than not, have a topic branch for pushing our patches, because once your reviewer gives you comments, you can come back, edit it. Otherwise, it kind of messes up with your developer environment. We have tons and tons of documentation on how to map projects to either IntelliJ or Eclipse, because I remember the last summit, Michael Warburger came out with an automated way of importing projects using OOMP. So we have a tremendous amount of effort that has gone into making life simple for developers. So the wikis are the best source of truth for you, to helping you out. So never be confused about contributing. In any case you have a problem, drop a mail to the mailing list.
All right. So you've checked in a few fixes, you understand the code better, the feature better. Now you realize, you know what this project is missing? This cool new feature which will, the best thing since sliced bread, it will revolutionize ODL. Let me try to pitch it. So what do you need to do? First thing, the feature. Is it a good fit for this project where you're putting in? Does it fit the scope of this project? You know, you cannot say, oh, I want to add some analytics on top of your Yang tools. Yang tools, analytics, how does that even fit in? Okay? Go to the project page, find out, okay, what is this project aiming to achieve? Whatever feature you are proposing, does it fit within the goals of that? Okay? And other thing, check what are the other projects. Does it overlap with something existing? Start communication. Go to the project meeting to see, okay, what are the, like most projects in OpenDaylight, we have our Trello board. Some communities use Launchpad, and all this means just to track what are the different features coming in a project. Does it fit anywhere? Does it conflict with anything? Something else already covers it? Learn, talk to people, get that information. First pitch the idea within the project or that community, see how is the feedback. Sure, people will give you positive and negative feedback both. Work on it. And most important, if you are pitching a feature, please, please, please do commit on the availability also. It should not be, hey, I want this feature, can you implement it? It does not work that way. That's not the way open source works. You want something, be ready to put in the effort for it.
Put in the effort for it.
And or let me put it this way. You say, oh, I want this feature. Okay, add it to the queue. It would go to the bottom. You are willing to work, it would get bumped up. And if you are putting in the effort, you might get others also supporting you. But if you just put it out hoping someone will pick it up, you got a better chance of exchanging a 500 rupee note right now.
Yeah, and one more thing, yeah. So we always have new features as a part of things which we are working internally. So we want to open source it. Now, one of the main problems is 1.5 years down the line, a new person comes in trying to fix a bug on the feature. He doesn't know what the heck the feature does. So always, always, always with a new feature, have enough amount of documentation that would actually ramp up somebody who is new, somebody who has just come to the project. So so Vishal and Anil, I think they came up with an excellent idea for NetWord. as in having a template for a feature specification, as in what is the outline of the feature, what does the feature actually do, then what are the YANG files or the models that it is bringing in, what is the use case, what are the files that is going to change, and what are the test cases that are going to be impacted or added as a part of this. Simple documentation as this with a restructured text that is currently in. So the moment you code in a feature and you have a documentation on this gets linked to the ODL documentation so that you can easily find out more about this particular feature. Now, speaking of documentation and jargons, one of the most important things in ODL are milestones. So the moment everyone in the community agrees on your feature, they would say, okay, can you please provide a head count of it before M0? Yeah, so the first time somebody said to me, I said, what is M0? So yeah, so we have different milestones in ODL for every project, whether it's offset 0, offset 1, and offset 2. So the milestones link is attached to the PPT. So it would say that M0 is basically when you plan everything, and M1 is when you start working on it. So ensure that your milestone alignment and your projects are aligned to it so that it would give PTLs less nightmares and release managers happier weekends and Friday nights.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, right? Because if you're working for a company, you would be having your own internal milestones and deadlines and all that. So if you want to contribute a project which you want to later on consume internally, make sure the timelines do match up. Okay, so this was just about a feature. Now you realize, oh, I have come up with much cooler concept which is much bigger in scope. It doesn't fit within the scope of this particular project, but maybe I should start my own new project. Okay, cool, you got a good idea. So how do we go about it? First, just like feature, you see, is there any other existing project? Let's say you're coming up with some denial of service attack prevention application. Is there any such security application? Or something is there. Then you go look at it. Is it doing the same thing? No, it's doing something different. Or, oh, it's doing something similar, but it's doing much more. Then, okay, how much of it is overlap? Can some of it be done by the existing application I build on top of it? Just to figure out your dependencies.
Yes.
And then, most importantly, is the community interested in it? Okay, that's where it becomes important, is that when you pitch a new project, they mostly pitch at the start of our release cycle, because now we are just starting with Carbon release cycle. So if you want a new project to be part of the Carbon release, now is the time to pitch it. And as part of the pitch, you have to pitch in what value this provides to the community, why it should be a separate project, and what value community will get from it. And of course, like we were saying, how many resources you'll be able to put in it.
Yes.
Okay, and one more thing that may not be very obvious, but for fairly decent sized projects, what we request is, it's good to have participation in a project from diverse companies. So it should not look like, oh, just Ericsson, it's a project, 8 members, all of them Ericsson. It would be less likely to get selected than a smaller project with lesser number of people, but each from different companies.
Yeah, but Vishal, I have a project idea, and I know who are the committers to it, but how do I go about proposing a new project?
All right, so for that we have this is a standard project layout. So you go to this wiki link, we have a project proposal template. So it captures all the information you need to fill in when you propose a project. It captures all the process. So the way it works is, you fill up that process, there's a wiki page that tracks for each release what are the new projects being proposed. You add it to that wiki page which links to your page which you filled using that template. You let the TSC know, then TSC will take a look, oh, we have, say, 7 projects for this release. So they will schedule a review for you, which your proposed PTL will have to attend and pitch it, and then they will vote on it, and then it will get selected.
Yeah, so and after that, once you start coding for the project, the archetypes are something that you would really require to get started on creating a new directory or creating a new project structure. So we have the link for archetypes also included as a part of this PPT. Now, more often than not, we have companies and corporates that say, I want to use OpenDaylight, I want to use this project. So what would be how would they evaluate? So what we could do is, first see what are the problems the upstream projects are satisfying, and what is that delta that you want. If the upstream project is satisfying all of your required criteria, use it more like a library, so that so that only a version at every release you can just consume the upstreamable code more as a jar and go ahead and continue. What if we need to do certain changes to it? So, okay, so we need to go about hacking the code, check out the code, make your own changes, and try to upstream it. Because trust us, more often than not, if your code is simply downstream, it becomes a whole lot of an effort to maintain code. Because release after release, the project structures get changed, the dependency management gets changed, and it becomes a huge cumbersome effort to continue something which is extremely proprietary. And so always look into the value you can provide it back and try in upstreaming most of the code so that maintaining it is easier for you in the years to come. Okay. So these are the links that would guide you on what are the corresponding bug tracking, the bug tracking tool for ODIL, that's the Bugzilla. The way to upstream code or check out and upload reviews is through Gerrit. The documentation link, where to find the mailing list of each project. The features can be tracked in Trello, the project proposal guidelines, and finally, the IRC channels where you can catch developers and poke them to find out what is the right way. The slide credits definitely to Kyle Mistry for his talk on the Austin Summit on the good, bad, and the ugly sides of open source. Stephen, Kit, and Alexis for what are the OpenDaylight best practices, and to the community members for their wiki pages and their help at every stage of OpenDaylight. In case you have any questions, we can take it.
I just have a general question when you say upstream.
Okay, just wait, because if you don't speak in the mic, it will not get recorded, and people on YouTube will have no idea what we are talking about.
Okay, so I've got a general question. Like when you say upstream, right? I have taken the ODL code base and I've extended it, written something, and you say push it upstream, right? So, like generally, what are the pros and cons you see with upstream versus fork the project?
You want to go about it?
Okay, let me start off.
Yeah.
Okay, see, first thing, when you are writing code, right, so it's not being written in isolation. So you must be using infra components like, say, controller, AMD, cell clustering, and all that, right? So biggest advantage of clustering, when you upstream it officially, they know that you have this dependency. If they make any change which can break your code, they will announce it well in advance and you'll be able to adjust to it. If you're a downstream fork, they can change it without any explanations, then your code is broken. What will you do now? That's the first point. Or rather say, I would say that is the biggest point, actually, because this is the biggest issue we always face for all the downstream code.
Because more often than not, I would take a simple example of migration from config subsystem to blueprint. So my proprietary model is based out of config subsystem, and so when Anil and folks moved every other applications on the plugin from config subsystem to blueprint, I did not pay any attention because it was all working for me. The next release I have to spend 8 weeks of bugging those people, bugging Anil late in US time zones to help me out do that migration. Yeah, he was kind enough to do it, but most people might not be.
Yeah, so this is dependency. And second thing is upstream, you upstream code, you upstream your CSIT cases for it. The OpenDaylight infra will be testing your code on a daily basis, nightly basis, weekly basis.
You get more support.
Downstream, you get more out of it.
Support.
You get more rigorous testing. You will find more bugs in your code.
Yeah.
You are downstream, you are on your own. How many servers you can afford? Find bug. How many people are using your code and how many people will find bug and fix it and improve it? You know, so it's not just the code part of the open source, but also the user base, the testing and all that. It all adds value.
Okay, thank you.
So we are done early.
Yeah, let's give people back 10 minutes in their lives. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So the last presentation of the day would be working on open source project, the learnings from development. So few of us from Ericsson, we have been working on a couple of open source projects, me mostly on the OpenDaylight for the past 3 years. So over the period of 3 years, we have learned quite a bit on what to do, what not to do, and most importantly, how to do it. So this presentation would mainly focus on how do you start contributing to an open source project? What are the normal questions you have in mind? What are the normal places you go to, or whom all do you approach to get solutions for those? So There are multiple open source projects. So if you look at this slide, there is a huge bunch of open source projects currently in the technological market, and most of them are open source networking projects. So the theories or the practices that we would say for one do hold good for the others as well. So in case you are willing to contribute to some open sources other than ODL, feel free. The policies would hold true. How to reproduce an issue. Because most of the times we are so very much accustomed to testing our own stuffs that we know exactly what is the testing that we are doing and how would we reproduce an issue. But once we are putting up that information in a bug, most of the times the people looking at it would not have any idea on how do you want to reproduce the issue. So put up all the configuration data that would you want associated with the bug, the topology of the network that you are testing out with, and any other relevant information, like I'm running it on a hardware server, this is the configuration, I'm running it on VM, this is the configuration, this is the networking that is done, you have any topology script that you can attach to, please feel free to attach all those information. Because if I'm a developer and I'm looking at a bug, I would like to have the maximum information that I would want from it at the first instance of time. So make sure that the bug V file has every bit of information that can help a newbie or a well-versed developer to attack it at that point of time. So, and most of the times we find a bug, we attach.
You can contribute to the project. So what you can do, first thing that you should always do is if you find a bug, find out where to file that bug. Every open source project will have some means for bug tracking. I'm sure those of you who have worked in software, in your organizations, you would have some bug tracking mechanism. Same holds for every open source project. File a bug. Give a good one-liner, because that initial one-liner is what everyone will see. It should catch attention and give a good summary. Give good description, easy to read, easy to understand. Is the bug reproducible? Easy to understand, steps to reproduce. Have you captured any log information? Capture it. Here also, raise bug, look up. Has anyone else ran into the same issue? If not, has anyone else ran into issues in the same product or not? What sort of information they attached? Look at some other bugs. What sort of information you can capture? For example, for OpenFlow plugin, one of the first things we ask is, okay, give me what are the flows you have in the switch. Or give me the cutoff logs from OpenDaylight. Capture information as much as you have captured. Okay? So, what else, Shuva?
Yeah, and never forget to include steps on how. Now,
okay, and if you go back to the slide, you know, one interesting thing that you will notice, it does not include OpenDaylight, it does not include OpenFlow, Honors, OVS, you know, the OpenDaylight ecosystem, open source, just to highlight the fact that this applies, what we are going to talk about, applies to any open source project you work on. Okay, so the first question is, when you decide, okay, I want to contribute, first question is what to contribute. No matter the nature of open source project, every open source project will always want, first of all, code. In open source, code is everything. Then documentation, then Q&A. Q&A, or rather you say testing. What those tests are varies from project to project, but code, testing, documentation, and what else was there? Yeah.
The question and answers, the blogs.
Blogs. QA, sure. QA is not question and answers, that's quality assurance.
Yeah.
He always confuses the two. Yeah. Okay, so blogs are, okay, you may have some documentation which is a bit too design focused, but how does someone new to your project use it? You know, if I'm sure quite a few of you have at some point tried, oh, let me integrate OpenStack and OpenDaylight. Google, OpenStack, OpenDaylight. One of the most popular search items or the most useful resource you would have ended up would be either a blog by Kyle Mistry or a blog by Flavio. At least up to 6 months, till last 6 months ago, those were the best resources you had. Those were blogs. So those are always welcome. Then comes IRC. Oh, I'm trying to do something, it is not working. Go to IRC channel, talk to the person, hey, I'm facing this issue. Someone would always be there to help you, though not so true in OpenDaylight. But in most open source communities, yes, someone will always be there to help you and respond to you within a few minutes. And yeah, we will always want more infrastructure. So maybe Anil might be able to talk much more about that. But okay, let's not go into that, right? It's a long story of its own. Okay, so most first point of entry for most people to an open source project is, oh, I'm trying to do something. Am I doing it correctly? You send out a mail, someone responds, oh, looks like this is a bug. Okay, good. So you found a bug, congratulations. Before you contribute code, this is the first thing